Welcome back to HerStance, where we don't just revisit women's history, we redefine it. By spotlighting the profound impact of female trailblazers, we forge a clear path from their legacies to contemporary change. Our mission is to fuel women and allies to discover their potential and drive progress in health, education, and safety. I'm your host, Sandra Koelle, and today we are diving into the life of a woman who didn't just write poetry, she thought in it. A woman who called herself a Black lesbian mother warrior poet. We are talking about the incomparable Audre Lorde. Audre was born in Harlem in 1934 to Caribbean immigrants. She was born Audre with a Y, but as a child, she chose to drop it for the artistic symmetry of Audre Lorde. I've always felt a deep connection to that. I chose to pronounce my own last name differently than my family does, partly in honor of a dear friend we lost to AIDS in the 80s, and partly because the traditional way just never fit who I was. Audre understood that. She knew that naming yourself is the first act of resistance. We're exploring Audre today because her words feel more urgent than ever. You've likely heard her most famous provocation: "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." She first said this in 1979 at an NYU humanities conference. She was looking at a room of white feminists who were ignoring the experiences of Black women and lesbians. Her point was radical. You cannot use the same systems that created oppression, like racism, patriarchy, and even the rigid structures of academia or the press, to truly destroy that oppression. In America today, as we see atrocities against Black and brown bodies and a political landscape that often feels complacent, Audre's message is a wake-up call. We cannot rely solely on the legislator or the pens of mainstream press that wants us to accept racism as immutable, like the common cold. We need new tools. We need interdependency, not just tolerance, but a real creative connection across our differences. So, what did Audre do when the master's house wouldn't let her in? She built her own. In 1980, she co-founded Kitchen Table Women of Color Press. It was the first U.S. publisher specifically for women of color. They chose the name Kitchen Table because that is the center of the home, the place where women gather to communicate and organize. They published groundbreaking works like This Bridge Called My Back, ensuring that voices excluded by mainstream publishers were heard. She also joined the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press, WIFP, in 1977. And yes, WIFP still exists today. They are still a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., working to democratize the media and ensure all women have an equal voice in the public sphere. Audre's work wasn't confined to the United States. She was a global architect of identity. In 1984, she began a visiting professorship in West Berlin at the Free University of Berlin. When she arrived, she found a city physically and ideologically divided by the Berlin Wall. But she also found a generation of Black German women who had no name for themselves, who were being othered by a society that viewed their heritage as a fault. Audre changed that. Along with activists like May Ayim, she helped coin the term Afro-German. She didn't just teach them poetry. She gave them a model for self-naming as a form of intellectual activism. She encouraged them to document their lives, which led to the 1986 publication Farbe bekennen, published in English as Showing Our Colors. It was the first book to treat Afro-Germans as a national identity rather than a series of isolated individuals. For Audre, Berlin also became a place of healing. She received naturopathic treatments there that her American doctors credited with extending her life by 8 years after her terminal cancer diagnosis. Then there was Cuba. In 1985, Audre was part of a delegation of Black women writers invited by the Black Scholar and the Union of Cuban Writers. This wasn't just a literary tour. They went to ask the hard questions. Had the Cuban Revolution truly improved the status of Black citizens? Had it changed the reality for lesbians and gays? She met with Cuban poets like Nancy Morahan, seeking a shared sisterhood. This trip reinforced her theory of difference, the idea that we cannot ignore subdivisions like race, class, and sexuality within the category of womanhood. She saw that even in a revolutionary society, the master's tools of silence and erasure could still exist, and she used her voice to challenge them. Audre fought many battles against systemic injustice and against the cancer that she lived with for 14 years. In her final years, she took the African name Gamba Adisa, which means warrior, she who makes her meaning known. Lorde has received many honors throughout her lifetime, and they are a testament to her impact. During her lifetime, she was nominated for a National Book Award for From a Land Where Other People Live in 1973. She received a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. And in 1981, her powerful work, The Cancer Journals, won the American Library Association Gay Caucus Book of the Year Award. She won an American Book Award in 1989 for A Burst of Light. And from 1991 until her death in 1992, she served as the New York State Poet Laureate. Posthumously, her legacy only grew. The Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry was established in her honor to continue supporting the voices she championed. Audre Lorde taught us that what is most important must be spoken, made verbal, and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. She traveled from the classrooms of New York to the Afro-German movements in Berlin, always encouraging women to use language as a form of resistance. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with her words. Without community, there is no liberation. Let's find our community. Let's build our own tables. And let's make our meaning known. Well, you've made it to the HerStance Challenge. Audre Lorde didn't just write about change. She built the platforms to make it happen. She showed us that if the master's house doesn't have a seat for you, you build your own table. So here is your challenge for this week. Identify a silence. Audre taught us that your silence will not protect you. Think of one truth about your experience or an injustice you see in your community that you've been keeping quiet. And find your kitchen table. Reach out to 2 people this week to share that truth. It doesn't have to be a protest. It can be a literal kitchen table conversation, a group text, or a coffee date. Take one collective action. With those people, identify one new tool you can use to support each other. This could be starting a small reading circle of authors like Lorde, supporting a woman of color-led press like Kitchen Table Press, or even just committing to checking in on each other's mental well-being in a world that often ignores it. Audre believed that our differences are not what separate us, but rather our refusal to recognize them and examine the distortions which result from our ignoring them. Take the challenge, break a silence, build a table. Share your story with us on social media using the hashtag HerStanceChallenge. I'm Sandra Koelle. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. We'll see you next time. All HerStance episodes and how you can support the mission can be found at www.elevateherexistence.com. Sign up for the newsletter there. It's published monthly. Thanks for your support of women's rights and taking a stance.